dominant so far of the World Cup? Maybe not.
OTB AM's performance rankings with Gillette.
I'm scratching my head. That performances was just lacked that intensity.
The Gillette has performance rankings. Welcome along this week for general hour and episode of pain. What do you mean? What's wrong with me?
What's wrong with you?
His team
What's wrong?
This is what it's all about. Like,
You're losing. Yes,
this
I
is
know.
what it's all about.
I know.
And I know, as a country, we prefer. You probably prefer to lose. Like,
No, I wouldn't.
you know, it gets the grief out.
I wouldn't.
But the anger is on.
The repressed generations of trauma finds an outlet. Is that what you're talking about?
17 points
It all
up
goes back to the famine.
after 12 minutes. 16 points up
We should
after
be talking
38
about the Munster
minutes.
Hurling Championship straight off the bat here. Sorry, I've ruined the tone of the
Oh.
show today. The Munster Hurling Championship is the be-all and end-all. You know, go on, have at it. Go on, sorry. Are you talking rugby?
We're
I don't.
talking about, we're starting.
I don't
with
think
the
we
red.
should talk rugby
there
today.
You go.
There's no
there
rugby.
You go.
No.
There's
No.
So, as you see, folks, we have two entrants from the same game. I'd
Glasgow
usually be
didn't
opposed
show
to
up on Friday night, you know.
I'd usually be opposed to that.
Met some Toulon fans
But
afterwards.
this
They were
is
very happy with their
absolutely
goblet of
what
wine of
everybody
prestige.
wants to talk about. I haven't even looked at the live comments, but I know you're all talking about the rugby. So I think that's a fair subtitle. Leinster threw it all away, and here's why. After 12 minutes, Leinster 17, La Rochelle 0. After 38 minutes, Leinster are 16 points ahead. But when the final whistle goes in Dublin on Saturday evening, La Rochelle have retained the Heineken Champions Cup. I will say one thing to you.
This
Ger.
is exciting.
I will say one thing to you, Ger.
I'm loving this.
I will say one thing to you. Rafael Nadal lost 2 Wimbledon finals in a row to Roger Federer
Yeah.
in 2006 and 2007. The first one by 4 sets, the second one in 5 sets, and in 2008, what is often considered the greatest men's final in Grand Slam history, saw Rafael Nadal finally win Wimbledon, beating Roger Federer. So, next season, the 2024 Heineken Champions Cup final, Leinster could finally get revenge. Rafael Nadal style against La Rochelle. Does
think
that make you feel better?
It's in Spurs Stadium, is it? Is that? Am I right? It's in London anyway.
I think it is in Spurs. Could we swap that out and just get Ireland to do well in the World Cup, and that'll be revenge enough for all of us?
I mean, I think everybody would take Ireland bouncing back from this against now a very solid game plan. So the reason why it's so depressing is that, as I said, so Stuart Barnes is a great piece in the Times today, just to bring you all down into our world, all the rest of you Irish fans. He's saying the scrum dismantled, the big beats up front from a French, South African and All Black perspective. They're going to be looking at what Rog and Donnacha Ryan did to us, and they'd be like, yeah, we can do that. Yeah, that's a great template for us. And you know, the French, the three that they have, Aldrit, Antonio, and who's the third one? I've just forgotten. Dante. What
What a player.
I'm like, oh my god. We can be a monster mode and very hard to beat, said their lock afterwards. And he's saying Tyke Furlong has diminished to the point where he needs to be at 100%, but he's not at 100%. He's saying Andrew Porter is a pile driver of a player, but got devoured in the scrum by Antonio. These aren't stuff that you hear in the Irish media very often. And even greater cause for concern is the situation at fly half. Was there a bit of fate tempted last week? But I was like, oh, you know, we can do this without Johnny Sexton. Turns out we can't. Everyone wants Sexton to be fit, but it's impossible not to be fearful. He is vulnerable. The back catalogue of blows and his present absence emphasise the potential frailty. But then he goes on to explain how Ross Byrne, not really the same.
I noted Ross Byrne missing 2 of his first 3 conversions as well. I mean, 4 more points handy to have.
Yeah,
Hit the post to both of them like they were tight angles.
they were tricky. You would hope that the first one that hit the post, the second one then is a rangefinder. Like, I mean, I've never kicked under pressure in a
Even
Champions
the
Cup
one he
final.
scored, though, like the third in that series, it was like he didn't strike it particularly well. Like, it just made it over the bar, and it wasn't like it was particularly far out or anything. You know, sort of thing you would have expected him to be able to get a lot more force and power behind.
Yeah, and maybe that fed into their decision. So certainly he turned down the penalty when so Leinster won a penalty in the 75th, 76th minute, whenever, and then they kicked to the corner and they had 2 minutes of pressure before the red card, which ended the game essentially. And they're saying that they backed him. That's his decision because he feels whether or not, and that's fair enough. But why didn't they go for a drop goal? Why didn't they line up for a drop goal? They were absolutely right there.
You were there, Ger. What was your feeling at the time? Go for goal.
take the drop goal.
Yeah.
I mean, I did feel like if you score a try here, you're going to win the game. So, like,
Well, when they kicked to the corner, were you happy at the time?
try and score the try. Well, there's long enough left.
There was long enough left. I think that's been overblown. People calling it possible Leinster arrogance, like, oh, we'll get a try, don't worry. But there was enough time. I understood the ambition.
I think there was long enough left. You're giving the ball back to them, and you've had. So you're down. Are they already down? Was Keller gone? Keller was gone at that stage. So they're down a man, and they know that they've been completely unable to stop the waves of attack. So you want to eat up as much of the clock as possible. I thought the plan was to kick to the corner, meander the ball into the middle, and then have your attempt at the drop goal. But they didn't ever line up for the drop goal.
No, they looked like they were very much going for the try from the start.
Yeah, but La Rochelle were down to 14 as well. Dante was gone. I mean, that's why they.
When did he go?
That was very, very soon after Kelleher. Like it was 14 apiece until Natai got sent off to about 2 minutes before the end. So it was a fair game, actually. Very, very shortly after Leinster down to 14. So
I actually don't remember when the Dante card happened. Was that not one of the reasons? Anyway, whatever. Like, it does strike me as something that they need to add to their armoury. Yeah, we can hit drop goals when we need to win tight games.
Dante was sin-binned on 74.
Okay, so yeah, then that's grand. It was back to 14 apiece. You don't want to give them the ball back with any time left on the clock, because, but it didn't happen.
No,
it's moot. I do wonder, like, does everything change if they get over the line? It does, of course. Like, it's like, oh, what a heroic performance it was against. Now, what we have to talk about is one of the all-time great European rugby teams. Like, La Rochelle are now one of the all-time great rugby teams.
Oh, we'll get to them in green, don't worry.
Yeah,
but let's talk about Leinster.
But because everybody,
let's extend yours pain a little bit longer. Well, no, like if Leinster had gone across, it would have been like great. Everyone would have been like, oh, they sustained the pressure. They've shown that they can actually show up in the big games and sustain that sort of pressure. And even if a team is coming at them, they still have the grit and the might to get back. Whereas instead, I think they should have taken their points.
And if they kick the drop goal, like again, all the narrative gets completely changed. It is an incredibly.
But also, you kind of want for that Leinster team as well to say like, okay, take the 3 points, go ahead, and then also be confident enough in themselves to be like, well, we can hold them out for another 3 or 4 minutes, get the ball back, and kick it out, and there we go, European champions at long last. Yeah,
I don't know. Maybe there was an injury or something with the kicking. I don't know. Like, and Frawley had obviously missed the kick the previous week, so he wasn't going to step up and take that one. Like, Harry Byrne, obviously they didn't feel had their trust after the Munster game, but certainly he would have the range for that final kick. So look, again, these are all the things. People weren't performing at absolute peak at the end of the season, and La Rochelle were. Yeah. So anyway, how do we all feel about Patrick Keelty? Yeah, I think it's important.
Sorry,
issues of the weekend. Yeah?
We're burning another lead.
Philip Schofield. What?
Can we talk about the coin toss beforehand?
Turn your head for 2 seconds, and all of a sudden the world is completely changed.
Illustrated, showcased by Leinster.
Hansen and Busted are
James Ryan, Gregor Aldrete. So much so it wasn't. He didn't look me in the eye. That was a mistranslation. It was the stare down.
Yeah, I don't know.
Right into his face. We actually have a picture of that of Ryan looking at Aldrete.
Look at
that. That's Roy Keane McCarthy stuff.
I found it a bit strange. Like, if he had genuinely not looked him in the eye, I would have been like, that was a bit more offensive than trying to stare him down. Like, you're the captain of like one of the great European teams before a game. Like, of course you're going to try and do a bit of intimidation or.
There's no. It actually smacks of a lack of self-belief. Like, why don't you just be respectful beforehand? I'll see you out there, in a good way, not a Liberty Tunnel way.
You've obviously been fed the talk. Are you a plant? Who are you?
Well, surely they were in the wrong.
Did you just retire from La Rochelle?
Look, Leinster's start was phenomenal. It's one of the best starts to a match I've seen all season. I don't know what happened after that. Like, I mean, maybe the half-time tussle changed everything, changed their focus.
None of this matters. The stare down beforehand, the rooms in the building, none of this matters. La Rochelle are better than Leinster slightly. They're like, 0.0001% better than Leinster, and they're
actually been exactly 1 point better than them.
Well, over the last 3 seasons, and that's the reason why. That's the reason why at the end of those 3 games now, they have got the better of Leinster. Like, But
it's not a crisis, is it?
For who?
For Leinster. Because I was hearing over the weekend, it was like, it feels like the end of an era, and I've been WhatsApp groups with a lot of Leinster supporters saying, you know what, Jameson Gibson Park, when it comes to it, just doesn't have it. James Lowe, when it comes to it, just doesn't have
Well,
it.
that's absolute bollocks.
That's too much, isn't
That
it?
is absolute bollocks, right?
I mean,
they are the worst sort of fans that you
I'm
can possibly
smiling
have.
away, Ger and Kathleen, reading these texts.
Yeah,
Is
they
there any
made
legitimacy in
mistakes.
this, like?
They made big mistakes in the game. They absolutely made big mistakes in the game. But Lowe is just back from injury, and Jameson Gibson Park has been a transformative figure in Irish rugby under Andy Farrell. He is at the centre of all of our best performances under Andy Farrell, which has taken our national side to number 1 in the world. We just won a Grand Slam. We just won our first ever series down in New Zealand. All because Jameson Gibson Park is a world-class scrum half. He didn't have his best game. Made some mistakes under pressure. So maybe the game plan was wrong. But the notion that they're not going to be good enough to play for Ireland or Leinster into the future is absolute bollocks.
The anger's on. Well, look, in a brighter spark, Dan Sheehan is so mobile and fast. He could be a centre or even a winger.
Yeah.
Like, so there's a lot of green shoots here, Ger. Like, do you know, a point isn't that bad to the best team in Europe.
You would hardly call it green shoots. Like, this is a very established team that it's like...
He's being patronising on purpose.
Okay, so how would you assess the last 2 seasons, Ger, Leinster fan? Trophyless.
Like,
Was it all worth it?
Everything is worth it. They felt alive, right? Yeah, all you want to do is you want to feel alive, and they brought the team to the brink of glory twice. And they've come up, as I said, against one of the all-time great European teams. The fact that it's Ronan O'Gara makes it more painful for Leinster fans because, you know, and there's a different scenario where he could have been coaching Leinster at some point, maybe. But anyway.
You're full faith of Leo Cullen?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this whole thing about like, oh, they've definitely underachieved. Like, they created all those players. A bunch of those players weren't going to be as good as they are without the coaching of Lancaster and without the coaching and the management of Leo Cullen. So, like, you can't say, oh, he's got this team of Galacticos. Yeah, well, they helped them become Galacticos. If Leo Cullen didn't replace Joe Schmidt, there was the whole Matt O'Connor thing in between. Wasn't it? I got my times wrong. Maybe I've got my times wrong. Have I got my times wrong?
What were you saying?
Oh, now I've lost it now. I'm rattled.
His head's gone here.
Yeah.
Never seen him.
So how do you rank this season for Leinster coming out?
That's really disappointing.
Like,
It was
no,
like, it's a
no,
home-
but like not just disappointing. Like, is it a failure of their season? The fact that they dominated, were on top for so long, and didn't come out with the title at the end. Like, it's not. This isn't a Leinster team where you're like, it's good enough to get to finals.
No, but it's also like sport, and the outcome is in jeopardy because we don't know what's going to happen. This isn't like there's no.
But we know the result of the season now. Like, we have it in front of us.
Tweeting us yesterday going, oh, they're just like Arsenal, aren't they? Like, yeah, exactly. West Ham and La Rochelle are the same thing. Muppet.
I love your mocking voice. It's the same for everyone. That WhatsApp group, the Leinster WhatsApp group, is alive and well this morning. I think Ger is overstating it, and it's not bollocks either.
Well, of course, Manu says something.
There are players that can be improved upon.
Sometimes I think you're
But
just in
they've all-
WhatsApp groups for the content column. You just sit there and you're
Yeah,
like, yeah, sorry, my mate said this morning. Just finding the most controversial ones you can.
Rory Larmer's in straight away. Head's gone. Ger's head's gone this morning.
The mates don't exist. That's the truth about
They
this.
are AI.
No, this is stuff that you would like to have the boss to say yourself, but don't. Yeah.
Oh!
There you go.
Oh, wow. That's when he's really serious.
Yeah, you're
I
bringing
could
it
say
now.
They change the tone. No, I am saying everything.
No, you're
Through
saying
them.
everything.
I've said everything. Leinster in red, and rightly so.
You said it all. Yeah.
Yeah. But overall, good season for Leinster.
I mean, it's not a good season when you like. So it's been a continuous period of difficulty, and look, you know, they have to more than get over it. Like, that's it. They have to, you know, the South African influence will come in next season, and we shall see how that goes, and hopefully it goes well.
Look, Alan Quinlan and James Tracy were on commentary for Off the Ball over the weekend for this match. We'll have Alan Quinlan in after the first ad break. Quinlan's opinion that Leinster did not throw this away.
I was right.
They didn't blow
knew
it.
I was right.
They didn't blow it.
Matt O'Connor was the coach beforehand, right? Where the same resources, the same available selection, and the team was absolutely abysmal. Terrible to watch. No ambition to play. And then Leo Cullen comes in, takes a little while to get going, but is humble enough to take on coaching advice from around the world, and Graham Henry first, and then ultimately Stuart Lancaster, rekindles the career of Stuart Lancaster, and turns this team of kids into now what everybody says. Oh, it's a team of Galacticos. How could you not win with that? It's like, well, we made them Galacticos. Like, we're the ones who are responsible for their evolution and development. So,
I've been told by the producer to move on.
right.
Let's go into the other red. Kerry. Their first defeat at Fitzgerald Stadium in 40 matches. Mayo kicking 119, losing 17 points to 119. Does this matter, Ger?
Yes, this matters.
I was chatting to James O'Donoghue on the show before the game kicked off because he was doing comms down for us down in Kerry, and he was so excited. He was like, it's a beautiful day in Killarney. And he was like, oh, Mayo have made a few changes. They don't have Paddy Durkin. You know, I really think Kerry can take them. Went to him about 30 minutes into the first half, and you can almost hear the despair in his voice. Like, it had changed completely, and he was like, Mayo should have had about 2 goals at this stage. Kerry looked totally off the pace. And like, you could hear it from the way he was speaking that he was like, today isn't going to be a good day for us.
I think it matters for loads of different reasons. That, like, Kerry will have to go and lick their wounds, and they've got plenty of opportunity to do that over the next couple of weeks before we see them now in a preliminary quarter-final, more than likely. I think that'll be at home for them if they finish second in the group. This is all still very Nations League-y when it comes to working out the prognostications. But it means Mayo are genuine All-Ireland contenders again. Like, you can't go to a full Fitzgerald Stadium in Killarney and control the game from start to finish and then not be considered genuine All-Ireland contenders. This is exactly what we needed the first round out. Like, again, it goes to show that the provincial championships should just be their own thing and not connected whatsoever to the later competition. The later competition for Sam Maguire should be a standalone competition. It's great for Galway that they won this year. It was great for Roscommon that they reached the final, blah, blah, blah. You know, the Ulster final. Well, there'll always be an asterisk beside that game. But I think this does matter. And I think the fact that it was a full house and it's a 5-point win for Mayo. Yeah. You know, while I was being trolled by one of our friends who may or may not be travelling in South America about the Leinster run, it was great that there was a bit of back and forth. There was something else you can get back to the Kerry people. So I know the Kerry Mafia are not taking this well. No, my thoughts are with them this morning.
Did you see Owen Sheehan's face?
I did.
Jesus. Broke his nose cycling.
He did.
Still watched all the sport. The commitment knows no bounds for that man.
Yeah.
Overall. But look, we won't know if this is this.
He's okay though.
That's he's okay. Yeah. I would absolutely say that. Look, we won't know if this newfangled Sam Maguire competition is actually going to be a success until we're done with the first go, right?
Oh no.
Like there could be something in this.
It's way better than the crap that there was, but it's nowhere near as good as it could have been if they'd just gone with the good proposal that they had. Like, we would have had this earlier in the year.
Proposal B, by any chance?
Probably.
Look, we'll move on. We'll move on because the Munster Hurling Championship, like, I have it there, cruel Munster Hurling Championship, talent punished, which I think is fair, and that's why it's in the red, because I actually feel bad putting my own province in the red here after that. Another incredible day of Munster Hurling Championship. Limerick and Tip drawing. They were 9 times level in this game. Another sending off for Limerick. Barry Nash. Their discipline, like, the poor discipline knows no bounds. Like, we've been talking about this so far this year. What's the story with Kylie's men? Like, why can't they keep it all together? But it's a different problem that they had yesterday, which was seemingly a bit of complacency. Would you agree?
I don't know if complacency is the right word, because like there was so much.
They didn't look at it. They didn't look like their usual intense selves.
But they haven't really looked like that a lot this season. Like, I don't think yesterday was necessarily a different thing, and I don't know if it's complacency or if this is just a team that's struggling to motivate itself, because like there was so much on the line yesterday. If there was any game that you were going to have a bit of get up and go, it had to be yesterday, because it was essentially do or die for them.
Yeah, but how did Limerick, like, it was a few weeks ago, Shane Hannon sitting in this very chair lamenting the fact that Limerick are as dominant as the Dublin footballers were a few years ago. So how did Limerick find themselves in a position yesterday where they very feasibly could have been knocked out of Munster?
Well, the Munster Hurling Championship is too.
So there you go.
It's too hard.
And can they do anything about this to change the fact that a very, very good side will always exit the championship way too prematurely?
Well, we were happy enough with the 2 teams going last year, thinking, well, we're not really missing anything here, because there has generally been one of the teams in crisis whenever the round robin has been played, and so you can kind of scratch them off in Waterford of this year's version. But this year you can't. Like, and there could still be something a little bit kooky over the final games. So I think it's ridiculous to put the Munster Hurling Championship in red. I think, I mean, you're
But I'm not though. I'm putting
pedantically.
I'm putting the cruelty of the fact that a great team goes out. Also, look, we have to mention Westmeath's ridiculous comeback against Wexford.
I actually think that was
in.
talked about more in the YouTube comments this morning than Leinster initially.
Have at it, like that was insane. I was driving back from Sligo, listening to that on the radio. It was actually interrupted. It was like old school. We have to interrupt this news bulletin for a very important breaking news. Westmeath are on the comeback. Like, that was one of the greatest comebacks in All Ireland history, let alone this year. And they're not even in the performance rankings.
I think I saw somewhere that it was the biggest ever comeback, like in terms of points to come back from 17 down.
And look, we'll do something on this properly this week because that was remarkable. Well,
here's the thing. Sorry, if Antrim beat them in the final game of the round robin in Leinster, then Wexford will be relegated.
Yeah. No, it's completely slipped under the radar. Like it's the biggest news. But I will say one more thing about the Munster Championship. Cork losing by a point to Clare. The old problem of Cork's forwards' work rate coming back into the limelight there. Clare were strolling out at a whim, and the fact that they only lost by a point is actually impressive at the end because there is a problem with Cork off the ball. But there is.
Okay. Well, we'll talk about that with Sarah in a little while.
We will. Let's transition very smoothly on to Amber.
Clare could be All Ireland favourite at this stage after next week.
Well, Clare's sorted, yeah.
And they just beat Cork by a point. You're like, typical Cork. I can't believe it. They didn't bother showing up and doing any work.
Oh, yeah. Look, we have to move on. I'd love to spend more time on Cork's defeat. You know I would. But look, the time's of the essence here. Katie Taylor, Amber. Now this, bring it behind the curtain, folks. Big debate about this last night. Where should Katie Taylor lie
in the red?
Gillette Labs performance rankings
in
this
the red
week. This cold son of a gun in the middle of your shot there, straight into red she should go.
Yeah.
What? Sorry. You have to discriminate between, in the boxing terms, a fighter getting knocked out or stopped comfortably before the final round versus a decision defeat where the first judge had Chantal Cameron and Katie Taylor as a draw. You have to discriminate there. It wasn't a bad performance. And this is the Gillette Labs performance rankings, not results rankings.
I'd say Katie Taylor feels like she's a winner all right this week. Does she? She's like, oh yeah, I don't feel like a loser. They're holding up somebody else's hand. No, this is an unusual feeling. I don't know what that is. Oh, this is the feeling of being an Amber.
You had, well, first of all, a couple of things there. We have an Amber every week. You knew this was coming. Secondly, who else was going to come into Amber this weekend? Who else? And thirdly, it's a very American sport attitude you have where, like, we only have a winner or a loser. You know, like, there's
no tie. It's like kissing your sister.
There is a bit.
I mean, come on. Huh? What?
There is a bit of ambiguity here. Like, there is a bit of nuance.
I mean, there really
isn't. It wasn't a terrible performance.
Look, I realised that this is one of our sacred cows, and it is, and you can't criticise anything that Katie Taylor has ever done. But picking this fight was the wrong fight for her. Like,
okay, let's talk about that.
She could easily, and it would absolutely have been the right thing to do for her health and for her career, had a homecoming fight against anybody, and they would have sold it out. And then that's a warm-up for a big fight, which is your going away fights. And then you can, have it wherever you want. Reports in the papers today that Croke Park not interested in doing business with Eddie Hearn. They felt like they were pissed off. Kieran Cunningham has this story. They particularly didn't like the declaration that the GA were taking the piss. Taking the piss. That did not go down well, apparently, in GA corridors.
I generally agree with Jer's opinion that Katie Taylor should probably be in the red. No, because I think if you look at Katie Taylor and everything she's done in her career and like how she looks at herself, that like she obviously would be disappointed and obviously like wanted to win that fight. I don't necessarily agree with the point though that like she should have just taken an easier fight and would have had like a big yay, it's a nice day out or whatever. She's never done that.
But that's what all boxers do. There's nothing wrong with that.
No,
no. You don't have to always be the...
But like, like for her and what the legacy she has built for herself over the last like 7, 8, 9 years, like she doesn't want that for herself. And like she was never going to come back to Ireland and just take some easy fight for the sake of doing it and have like a big flashy moment. Because that's not what Katie Taylor wants to do. And like I do appreciate that about her. I do think maybe she could have chosen an opponent that was a bit smarter or maybe a bit more middle of the road.
Yeah, somebody who's not 3-inch reach, 3-inch height advantage, and also just a bigger fighter. Like, that just didn't make any sense from a business perspective. And this isn't really just sport. This is a business. I think that she could have fought somebody different.
I thought she looked tired in the opening few rounds and overwhelmed by Cameron's flurry of punches, because if you saw the statistical breakdown, Taylor threw nearly half the number of punches but was actually more accurate when she was throwing them, but she wasn't doing any damage to Cameron. So you can imagine when you're in that position and whatever I'm doing here, my best basically isn't good enough, it isn't strong enough. But she looked a bit flat. And I'm not just saying that after the fact. I was watching the fight live thinking she doesn't look quite there. I don't know if she was emotionally drained by the homecoming. Look, like, it's very much Monday morning analysis in every sense of the word, but it did seem she was slightly off.
Let's hear from Eddie Hearn.
So Eddie, it wasn't the fight for Katie Taylor tonight. It's not what the Irish wanted, not the result the Irish wanted.
No, but it was a great fight. And, you know, when you're in a great fight, you're in a tough fight, you're in a 50-50 fight, you can get beat. And Chantel Cameron was fantastic tonight. I thought it was a very close fight. I thought Chantel just edged it, and Katie will be devastated, but will be desperate to do it again.
Katie, we know her for her pace. I didn't see that as much tonight.
Yeah, she looked really tired, like even in the first round. And I don't know, I hate to take away from what Chantel did. Her body work was great, and she needed to start the fight fast, and she did from the first round. But Katie looked really tired. I know the ring walk was long, and it was so emotional. Like, I don't know whether that was draining. I felt really emotional watching her getting in the ring and seeing the crowd, but you know, Chantel was really calm in there tonight. She knew what she had to do and she executed the game plan perfectly.
Yeah, a really powerful fighter. Was it a risk to jump up in weight class? We talked about this.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, Chantel's boxed at super featherweight, she's boxed at lightweight. She was the bigger fighter in there tonight, but Katie wants to take risks. You know, she tried to make history tonight. She wanted that fight, she wanted the homecoming, and she'll still believe she can beat her.
She hasn't come out to speak to the public just yet, and we can't blame her for that whatsoever. She put on an amazing show tonight. Have you got a chance to speak to her?
Yeah, I spoke to her in the ring. I mean, she was exhausted. She was devastated. She'll cry herself to sleep tonight, you know, and she'll probably won't sleep much till the rematch date's confirmed.
Yeah, so there will be a rematch, it looks like.
Should there be?
On what level?
Would you want to see that fight again?
I don't want to see any of the Irish fighters ever fight again once they've made their money or won a world title. I feel like that the sport, it's a law of diminishing returns in terms of your health. It's just so dangerous.
Yeah, like I had forgotten about the intense experience it is to watch a fighter in a top level boxing match when you have a proper fighter that you actually want to win. It is excruciating to watch.
Yeah,
it is so, like, I was flinching at some of the punches, you know, and you forget that because it happens so rarely. That was the first huge Irish boxing contest we've had since 2011, and I do want to experience it again, but it was tough to watch at the end.
Yeah, well, I always feel very guilty watching these fights because what they're putting themselves through and the punishment and what's coming in later life for fighters.
Yeah.
You know, we know far more about it now even than we did 10, 15, 20 years ago. So she's 37 in July. Maybe one more fight. I think there was always only going to be one more fight. And look, if it's not going to be in Croke Park and if it is going to be a revenge fight, then maybe.
I would like to see a Croke Park fight, I have to say. By the way, sorry, before we move on from this, God love anyone, whoever was sitting behind Conor McGregor, if they dropped a couple of K for that ticket, like, they're not seeing anything. The guy was up constantly, standing up. Do you tell him to sit down, like?
Can you tap Conor McGregor on the shoulder?
That's what we were debating. We were watching it live. I was like, how do you approach this? Like,
anyway, let's move on.
Yeah, so we're into green. We want to talk Premier League. Now, I saw one comment there. Why are Man City and Forest in the green? Like, no one cares. Whoa! It's another Premier League title for Manchester City and Nottingham Forest.
I think Man City
thought were shoo-ins for relegation.
Who should be in the amber? Man City in the amber.
Not to talk.
Well, they won the league ages ago. We know that, and you know.
Well, they won on Friday morning in our last show. They hadn't won the league, but that actually correlates with the other green. With them, Nottingham Forest beating Arsenal on Saturday evening at the City Ground. A remarkable end to the campaign for Forest. Steve Cooper was talking to Sky Sports afterwards and said there was a game, and I remember this game, at home to Spurs at the start of the season way back in August, where they lost 2-0, and he said it could have been 5, and he said he really feared for their future and what was going to happen, and he thought they were going to get relegated himself, and he's the manager. So I know they spent the bomb over the summer. They basically brought an entirely new squad in, but we also saw Chelsea do very similar transfer business where they bought way too many players in. I thought the same for Forest. There'd be no cohesion here. So fair play to Steve Cooper because he got all these new players in, got them playing together, and they've been excellent. And now with a game to spare, they've retained their Premier League status. And I think you have to pay tribute because fair play to them. Remember they lost to Brentford a few weeks ago. We had them in the red. It looked like they were going down and they've come back. So it's been brilliant. And for Manchester City, we had a big debate about them on the show last week. The Sunday Times did a big article about how Pep turned their season around. In January, they lost to Southampton in the Carabao Cup quarter-final, 2-0 at St Mary's. And at the time, they had poor run of form in the Premier League. Kevin De Bruyne was out of the team. They lost their following game, the Manchester Derby at Old Trafford. And whatever you say about the limitless budget and where the money comes from, and Pep has everything he ever wanted, they were struggling in late winter. And he has turned them around, whatever you want to say about it. He has. And I think you have to give them credit where it's due. They annihilated Real Madrid during the week. They've made, 9 changes to the team against Chelsea yesterday. They still won 1-0. I know Chelsea are rabble, but they still did it. And it's testament to what Pep has done with that side. Have to pay tribute to them.
Yeah, and we also have to mention the allegations of financial impropriety and the cover-up that they're facing at the moment. So these two things are going to live together forever.
Absolutely. The 115 charges ever since that news broke on the 6th of February. They've been excellent since then. They've only, the only points they dropped
spurred them on.
Was actually at the City Ground. They drew 1-1 away to Forest. And since then, it's 24 games unbeaten. So it's backs against the wall. Everybody hates us. Let's show them how good we are. So it's very unfortunate. There is that asterisk, but
is it
what
backs
a team.
Against the wall?
That's what the message that Pep sent to the players and staff was. Everybody hates us. Once again, this is the second time in 3 years they're after us. Happened in February 2020. Nobody likes us. Everybody wants us out. We'll show them.
So it's a season
have to say they did.
And they have used the charges, it feels like, as...
Yeah, because, I mean, the players don't care about the charges, do they? They're just like, okay, let's play.
Well, they're up for 7-figure bonuses if they get the treble, so...
And Kyle Walker wants to do it for the owner.
And that's why Pep was so angry at them when they lost to Southampton in January in the Carabao Cup, because if they won that tournament, the highest players only got a 75 grand bonus. And he accused them of saying, well, you're not motivated enough to win this. If you're not going to win this game, there's no point winning any other game. That's the way he looks at it. Jack Grealish was saying it afterwards, Sky Sports yesterday, that he described Guardiola as weird. He's like, it's just weird how he knows so much about every opposition that we play. And reading this article yesterday in the Sunday Times was that the staff and players remarked upon how remarkable it was that Pep put as much preparation into the Sheffield United FA Cup semi-final as he did for the Real Madrid Champions League semi-final. Shows everyone the same level of respect. That's why he's so successful.
Right.
One more green.
Yeah, some quick comments. Taylor, technically better boxer, but Cameron, the more physical and conditioned fighter, says Dara Gallagher. Should she not be applauded for taking on this challenge and not choosing an easy fight, says Michael. Katie Taylor was headhunting from first belt to the last belt. She should have mixed it up. Unfortunately, a rematch is a bad idea for her, says Bernardino. And then Hearn should be in the red for setting the fight up, says Aina Carroll. Taylor looked tired after 2 or 3 rounds, completely outboxed the whole way through, says Jamie G. If she lost and was from Cork, Colin would still put her in the green because of her Corkness, says Kenny the dad. You got it, Kenny.
Well, Kenny.
Katie went to weight up, so the loss isn't a major deal breaker, says Frank. How can you even consider having Katie Taylor in the red, asks Michael. Boxed well against a great opponent, brought a big night of boxing back to Ireland, and have raised female sport to a whole other level. Yeah, but she's raised female sport to a whole other level ages and ages and ages and ages ago.
That's a great
And she would have brought big time boxing back, irrespective of who the opponent was, is my point. And then, by her own unbelievably high standards, she's definitely in the red, says Aina. For the greatest female boxer of all time, any loss is a catastrophe. There you go. A sample of some of the opinion.
Final green. We're going to bring it right back to the rugby again. A beautiful little cycle here that we're going on this morning on the Gillette Labs Performance Rankings. It's Raj, it's Ronan O'Gara. I said at the start, I wanted to leave it till now, but I just couldn't contain my excitement. He's not just a contender for Cork's Mount Rushmore, it's Ireland's Mount Rushmore. What a job he's done at La Rochelle. They were playing D2 rugby as recently as 2014. I know he inherited a very talented side, but he's getting the best out of them. And to retain the Heineken Champions Cup, to do it at the Aviva Stadium against an all-conquering Leinster, which they have been all season. Forget about the fact I know that they lost the same final last year to the same opposition, but since then they've been brilliant, right up until last Saturday when they lost to Munster and now La Rochelle. You have to give Ronan O'Gara immense credit for that. Also, the start, they had 17-0 down in no time. They were totally overwhelmed. This was the question I was thinking at the time was like, God almighty, they might not just lose this, it might be an embarrassment. What a comeback. Is there anything more to be said?
No.
Why not?
No more to be
Why
said.
not?
Well, because you asked
You're
and
an
I
objective
answered.
broadcaster, a renowned one at that.
You
Let's hear
asked
you.
and I answered. No, O'Gara. Like, it's ridiculous what he's done. It's
Isn't it?
absolutely
Isn't it though?
amazing.
Isn't
No, it is completely. It is like I don't remember any other Irish coach doing this. Like, I just don't. You know, it's
It's the way they were able to just grind it out. Like, there was not necessarily any point in that second half where you were like, oh, they're going to run away with this, or like it's definitely in La Rochelle's hand and they're definitely going.
as a Leinster fan.
No,
we
go
had
on.
the sinking feeling.
No,
all the way through.
cause we saw Leinster had their chances towards the end of that half. If they had just taken the points, if they had just got over the line, it would have been a totally different story. It wasn't like La Rochelle came out in the second half and did what Leinster had done in the first 20 minutes of the first half. It was far more intense. It was slow. It was like pick and go, grinding sort of rugby. And in some ways, that was almost like I'd love to know what O'Gara said to them at half time to kind of.
Well, he was busy.
There.
He was busy last time.
But how did he change the mentality of that team that let 3 tries in so easily and then
It had changed in the second quarter, really, when they got back into the game and started to get into Leinster's half. Leinster couldn't get out and started to make mistakes. Like, their try comes off, Leinster steal the ball, and then there's a quick pass back to James Lowe and there's a knock on, and then from that period of pressure they get over the line and you're like, well, this is a really good team and they're not dead. And I'd say, from as a Leinster fan on the ground, and it spread, I'm sure, but it did feel ominous, a bit like.
Well, I know I was surrounded by hundreds of Leinster supporters, and I watched it in a pub, and it went so quiet as the second half moved on. Normally there's kind of people chatting, or even the people who weren't interested in the match started watching it, and it was just silence across the entire place. And then every so often Leinster would do something semi-okay, and everyone would kind of roar, and there'd be a few Leinster, Leinster chants, and then they would just slowly die away again.
Yeah. No, that point is spot on as well, because I experienced the same in your own lovely county in Sligo. I was watching it.
Great spot.
In one of your finer establishments, and it was the same thing. A lot of people weren't watching it, and then the last 5 minutes there was just this sense in the pub that something seismic's about to happen.
That was incredibly intense.
Yeah, and there is nothing like that shared experience with strangers where you're sharing tables with these people you never met before.
And was
everyone's in it
anybody
together.
supporting Leinster in Sligo? Colin?
Everybody was supporting Leinster.
Were they? Except
Everyone,
you?
except me.
Right.
Everyone.
Wow.
Also,
Clowns to the left of me, jokers to the right. Here I am.
that one, yeah,
I
you
do,
worked
because
on
it's
that.
always accurate.
But no, because I thought I supported La Rochelle, and I thought
What goes on here stays on here.
I didn't realise until the match was actually being played. Whenever Leinster ran in the tries at the start, I felt disappointed, and then when La Rochelle started coming in, I could feel my heart rate going up and the excitement building, and I didn't actually realise myself how much I cared. I kind of thought, surface level, I was
iconic fan.
Yeah, I was Ultan Delan, Rog, I kind of like to see them do
I'm
well.
delighted for Ultan
that's
Delan.
class. There's a picture of him too,
maybe-
with the trophy.
Maybe at some point he comes back to see out his career as an Ireland international, and that goes full circle. Rog can bring him back.
We never actually mentioned James Ryan going off to the huge impact on Leinster, which we'll get to with Alan Quinlan. But one of my favourite sporting shots of the year was the full-time whistle when the camera panned to Ronan O'Gara. And I won't say it, but what he said was obviously very easy to lip read, but it was just
Nathan has a good clip of it on his Twitter.
It's fantastic. It's brilliant. Obviously, it's just great. It's a bit biased, but it's also amazing just to watch the absolute emotion just rip out of him.
I'm surprised his eyes didn't pop during the whole thing. I don't know, Jar, if you watched any of it back, but any time the camera panned to him, his eyes were so wide and intense. You could see the
It's
stress.
funny, in the ground there was no shots in the first half, or not that many shots in the first half, and then one came up when Leinster were killing them, and the Leinster crowd were oh, and it's don't be doing that, lads.
They actually didn't really show that much of him on the TV whenever
Until the
Leinster,
second half.
yeah, because we were sitting there going, God, I'd love to see what Roger's face looks like now.
I know. There's a grand tradition, and you get Rog Cam and you get Sexton Cam, and what was going on, lads? Did nobody tell the directors? And then it turned out that Sexton was involved somehow in that contretemps at halftime, which we'll get more details on. I don't really know if I should talk about this, but I had an emotional hedge. I remember being at a game one time, and somebody explained it to me. You bet against your team as an emotional hedge. So I was on the way down. I was like, I need to just make sure that this day isn't a complete loss, just in case it all goes pear-shaped. Is that bad? Am I a traitor?
A little bit. I think you stick with your team.
You stick with your team. You don't have to lose money on it.
Well, if you don't put any money on, you don't lose anything.
Yeah, but then I won.
I don't know if you did.
Well, I mean, I won money. Technically, that's a fact.
hedge.
Yeah, but would you say that like makes up for the
No,
clear
it doesn't.
and obvious disappointment that you were feeling this morning?
Does it appear to have?
Oh, did you see those Munster fans in the stadium afterwards after you got off the dart with the Raj masks?
Did I see them afterwards? No,
Yeah.
I did not see them afterwards, Colin. I did not go looking for them.
Oh, well, you didn't
There
go
was
up for them
head down,
initially, but
straight out.
they found you. That's my point.
Yeah.
That was a great
What's
sight.
your point?
No, I'm just wondering, did you see them again afterwards? Because that was beforehand you sent on the image.
No,
Okay.
didn't see them. I'm delighted for them. That whole, there's no Munster fans travelling up to support any team against Leinster. That just doesn't happen. It's like, well,
Who's that? Who you being there?
you.
Oh, that was a good impression. Yeah.
No, I wasn't being you, Colin.
Yeah.
Again, with the old Adrian Barry trick of commenting on the jokes as they happen.
Oh, no, I would never do that.
You're a great
No,
team.
they've never compared me there. No,
16
never.
minutes past 8. That is this week's Grim. I know, I'm sure you're great. If you're a Mayo fan, you're absolutely delighted. If you're a Westmeath fan, you're delighted.
Yeah.
If you're a Sligo football fan,
Pretty
you're
happy.
delighted. If you're an O'Gara fan, you're delighted. If you're a Man United fan, you're pretty happy about Casemiro. We could have put Man United in the amber this week.
And we didn't.
We didn't. Yeah, or if you're a Chantal Cameron fan, I mean, we'd love to know who you are, but fair play to you. That is this week's episode of the Gillette Labs Performance Rankings.